One of the more interesting stories that is currently trending in the news is the fact that the Zimbabwean exemption permits are coming to an end on the 31st of December 2022. To be honest, these permits expired December 31st, 2021, which was last year. And then the Home Affairs Minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, gave another 12 months for Zimbabweans under this permit to then go and try and apply for another status so that they can stay in this country. I think it's been over a decade, over 10 years, since 2002, if not before that South Africa granted some Zimbabweans a special permit because of the political and economic crises in Zimbabwe, or Zimbabwe, as I was taught by one of my mentors, Joshua Maponga, that I spent time with last week. One conversation is currently on my YouTube and on my Facebook, if you check them out. The number is about 180,000. Some argue up to 250,000 Zimbabweans that are living in South Africa currently under the ZEP. They've been living here for over a decade. They've built a life here. Some of our teachers, some of our truck drivers, some of our waiters and waitresses, some of our business owners are under this permit. And this permit was granted under special conditions. And Aaron Motsoaledi, the Minister of Home Affairs, and governments have decided that things cannot be special in perpetuity. This permit used to be renewed every 3 to 4 years, and now it has come to an end. It came to an end last year, and Zimbabweans were given 1 year to sort things out, failing which they will be deported and sent back to Zimbabwe. And so many publications have issues with this, saying that there was too little notice given, and saying that it is not very fair, and a lot of Zimbabweans are going to be getting displaced. A lot of families are going to get broken up. Aaron Motsoaledi actually highlighted something very interesting. He said that anyone from anywhere in the world who marries a South African citizen can apply to be a South African citizen themselves, which is quite unique globally. If you're under the ZEP, before you couldn't apply for that type of status. But now you've got the chance to apply for a status like that. It's going to be very interesting for me to see how many of those Zimbabweans are going to sneakily pay South Africans to marry them so that they can try and apply for other status. Other visa statuses, study permit, work permit, are open for Zimbabweans to apply for legally. There are processes out there. But according to some of these publications, one of them being News24, apparently for most of them it's going to be almost impossible to apply for any other status, and these people will have to go back to Zimbabwe. Some of us feel that this push by Aaron Motsoaledi and Home Affairs is the direct result of the push by Operation Dudula in speaking about the foreigners issue in this country. Not only Operation Dudula, but Gayton McKenzie's Patriotic Alliance has also been very vocal and aggressive about getting rid of illegal foreigners in this country. And then, of course, there was a lot of work done by Herman Mashaba in the city of Johannesburg when he was mayor, trying to make sure that some of the hijacked buildings and some of the foreigners, illegal foreigners, were removed in South Africa. Understand, Zimbabweans that have a ZEP permit are legal here. They have a permit to be here. They are not illegal foreigners. There are arguments that of this 180,000 to 250,000 Zimbabweans who have this special permit, there are more Zimbabweans with other permits in this country. And there's an argument that in total there are about 2 million Zimbabweans living in South Africa, making their money here, that have a home here. Some of them are obviously married to each other, living with each other. Some of them are married to or living with South Africans. This opens up a very, very interesting conversation to me that I think we really need to have as a matter of urgency now, and that we need to lead if our government is not going to do that. We are speaking about Zimbabweans and this ZEP that so many normal South Africans had never even heard of, that there's 180,000 Zimbabweans who are on a special permit here and who have had it for over a decade. Where are those people working? Have they taken South African people's jobs? Are they running businesses where South Africans would be benefiting? Who is funding them? Is government giving them money to be here? And why were they given the special permit, and what was the criteria? When were they supposed to go back to Zimbabwe? When Robert Mugabe dies? when Mnangagwa takes over, when ZANU-PF is no longer the political party, when Zimbabwe has its own currency? Or what was the criteria? When will Zimbabweans go back to Zimbabwe and try to fix their country themselves? And I think there's a Kampepe report that was locked for, I think, over 12 years, which made ex-President Thabo Mbeki complicit in some of the atrocities or so-called atrocities that were linked to Robert Mugabe's presidency. Thabo Mbeki was involved in some of that. How long do you help your neighbor for? When do you condemn the neighbor's leaders? South Africa has got good relationships with Zimbabwe. South Africa has never sanctioned Zimbabwe. We still trade with Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is one of our biggest trade partners, if not the biggest trade partner in the SADC region. How many other African foreigners are here under special permits? Maybe from a Somalia, which is a war-torn country. Maybe from a Mozambique. Maybe even from our neighbors, Lesotho, Eswatini, Botswana, Namibia. How many other foreigners are here with a special permit? How many of them with that special permit get grants? Things like child grants, old age grants, disability grants. I know in South Africa there's something called a refugee status. How many refugees do we have in this country? How many of them are getting a refugee grant? There is a refugee grant if you go into the website of the Department of Social Development or Social Services. How much of South African tax money is going to these people, and how many people are there? 180,000 Zimbabweans on a ZEP, potentially 2 million Zimbabweans in South Africa. How many other people from the rest of the African continent? And those are Africans. Then we have to do the same with Asians, the Chinese, that are not legally South African citizens, but maybe are here on a permit, whether a business permit or a work permit or a study permit. How many Chinese people are here? How many Indian people are here? Not Indians from eThekwini, from Durban, that were born here. Talk about Indians that have come into South Africa now, after being born in India. How many people from Sri Lanka, from Bangladesh, from Pakistan are here? How many South Americans, people from Cuba, people from Argentina, people from Brazil are here? How many people from places like Mexico, even places like the United States of America are here on some type of special permit or just on a general permit? And then how many Europeans? In South Africa, of course, a lot of black people are very emotional about the concept that we now speak about Africans in Africa having to get permission to be in a part of Africa. Yet the white people that came here uninvited have told themselves that they are citizens. If anything, they actually set up these systems of IDs and passports and borders. It wasn't a black African thing. It was a white colonialist system. They came here uninvited. They declared themselves citizens. And today they have the audacity to get other black people to agree with them that other Africans shouldn't be here. When are we removing the borders if we want the borders removed? If we don't want the borders removed, how do we discuss what should happen with the borders? Should we remove the borders between ourselves and other countries that we think are better? Maybe a country like Botswana, which does well. Maybe a country like Namibia, which does well. Should we remove borders and say, well, these guys are not really leeching from us. They're kind of able to stand on their own. And for me, and I've been dragged for this, when we look at Zimbabwe as a potential neighbor and the fact that the people of Zimbabwe have left Zimbabwe to come to a place like South Africa looking for a better life, and they have leadership issues there, and they have an economy issue there. Yes, there's a border between us and Zimbabwe. How different is the Zimbabwe issue to the Eastern Cape issue, to an issue of Mpumalanga, KwaZulu, Limpopo, who are also neighbors of a place like Gauteng, and the people that leave those spaces there also because of leadership, also because of the state of the economy. They come to Gauteng, they go to the Western Cape looking for a better life, just like Zimbabweans. They travel hundreds and thousands of kilometers coming here to be security guards, waiters and waitresses, truck drivers, school teachers, business owners, yet they're not from here. And when you ask them, when are you going back to the Eastern Cape? When are you going back to Limpopo? When are you going back to KwaZulu, to the Free State, to the Northwest, to the Northern Cape? They're like, there's nothing there for me. The economy is bad. There aren't opportunities. That's the same argument that Zimbabweans have. It's the same arguments that people from Malawi and Zambia have. some of the arguments for people from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, from Somalia, from Nigeria, from Pakistan. No, but we are South African. I hear black people making these emotional arguments and none of them are rooted in logic, but we are South African citizens. Do you realize that a lot of these Zimbabweans and other foreigners, including white people, they pay a lot of taxes. They generate a lot of value. They teach some of your children. They employ some of your family members in their businesses. They export into other countries and they bring in foreign currency. I've made examples of some of your favorite foreigners in this country. Someone like DJ Fresh, someone like Oskido, someone like the Fergusons, Connie Ferguson and her late husband, Ushona Ferguson as well. There's a long list of foreigners in this country that add value, and those are just the black ones. There are white ones as well that are here, that claim to be adding value, that run business, that employ South Africans, that pay tax, which then goes and benefits the black South African masses. Should we deport them as well? Should we get rid of all foreigners, and who decides what is a foreigner, or who is a foreigner and who is not? Or should we begin looking at the concept of value? Who is adding value and who is not? And should we look at the case of provinces? Should we be allowing for internal migration where Gauteng and Johannesburg are overpopulated? Durban is overpopulated. Cape Town is overpopulated because people from poorer provinces are moving economically, just like Zimbabweans and others, to these cities because they're looking for a better life. What happens when we get rid of the Zimbabweans? How many schools won't have teachers? I saw that very sneakily, and part of the issue with, in particular, illegal foreigners is the fact that so many white businesses hire these people because they can pay them below minimum wage. That's why they will defend them tooth and nail. No, we need these people. Where will we get employees? It's because you guys get to exploit them. Please understand, no first world country, no first world city has ever been built without slave labor. If that slave labor is not from within the country, it comes from somewhere outside. The greatness that is South Africa today, compared to all our African counterparts, is because of colonialism and the apartheid government who used slave labor to build the mines, to build the agricultural and textiles and manufacturing industries. Slave labor, which today we've dismantled, and that's why our economy is struggling. A country like China that we hold in such high regard today was built on internal slave labor, sweatshops, the exploitation of the Chinese, no minimum wage. Today they are a first world largely nation. A country like America was built off the back of slaves. Today it is a great nation and a great economy. And today America, because it is now cleaned, it's almost like money laundering. They've whitewashed their money. They now don't have slave labor within America. They outsource the slave labor to the East, to Vietnam, to China, because it's cheaper there. And then they sell you your iPhones and your Nikes, and they're like, no, we have ethical business and labor practices. But that's only because their products come from countries that have slave labor. The power that is Germany today, the power that is Russia today, comes from slave labor. In Germany, of course, we know that the Jews were in concentration camps under Nazi Germany with Adolf Hitler. And they exploited them there. In Russia, under Stalin, they also had slaves. In North Korea, with the Kim family, they have concentration camps and slaves. If you look in the South African context, you look at a city like Cape Town, you look at a city like Johannesburg, you look at cities like Durban. Those cities get to thrive in particular because they milk the bulk of their money from poorer provinces and neighborhoods. Capitec in the Western Cape, ShopRite in the Western Cape, Woolworths in the Western Cape, Pick n Pay in the Western Cape. All of these fancy companies like Discovery, Rand Merchant Bank, First Rand in Johannesburg and in Sandton. Those places get to make money because they've got branches in the smallest, dirtiest townships, cities, towns out there. They milk those places dry so that the people in those big cities can live lavish. And when you look at them, they're like, no, we have an open door policy. Our employees have great benefits. It's because you guys get to exploit other people elsewhere. And if it is not in the South African context, it is definitely from foreigners that are either here legally or illegally. So they will obviously benefit. They will obviously defend them as hard as possible. And then want to call Minister Aaron Motsoaledi a tyrant, say our government is unfair and is not considerate of these people. Zimbabwe is not currently in a war. Zimbabweans who are here are not refugees. Please understand that it was a special permit that was given because of the political and economic crises under Mugabe. He is no longer there, and Mnangagwa apparently is trying to rebuild Zimbabwe, and he needs Zimbabweans, especially the most skilled ones, to go back. If a Zimbabwe has skills and he is adding value to South Africa, why is he not going back home and adding value there? Very, very difficult conversations. I am Penuel the Black Pen. I was born in Newcastle, KwaZulu. Should I be forced to go back to Newcastle and rebuild Newcastle instead of helping Johannesburg, which is already a superpower? Why am I not going back to Newcastle and creating my videos there and running my businesses there and contributing to the economy, the development of the people there? Why am I here? Do I have a special permit? Should I have a special permit, or is it enough that I have an ID card? But when will Newcastle be uplifted while I'm here? And in my case, it's worse. Newcastle has got a bumping textiles industry, thanks to a Taiwanese community there. Newcastle has got a bumping mining industry. Glencoe and Shanduga have got coal mines there. Newcastle has got bumping agriculture. Some of the wealthiest people in Newcastle are farmers. And Newcastle's got a very healthy economy. We also do chemicals at Cabo Chem there. We've got ISCO, which is now Metal Steel there. I don't need to be here. I can be part of the economy there, but I'm here. And that's just me, and I'm an example of one. What about all the other people from Newcastle that are here? I think we need to have a conversation, and the sooner we have this conversation, the better. And I think for me in particular, I need to start having a standpoint on how I feel about borders, fundamentally borders. How do I feel about African borders? What do I think is the solution to African borders? How do I feel about migration? Whether it is continental, whether it is global, or even if it is just provincial or between towns. What is my standpoint on migration? Do I think it's fair that capitalism is constantly taking the greatest talents out of small towns and cities and concentrating them in certain spaces? Silicon Valley in America, I think it's Palo Alto in San Francisco. Silicon Valley has got a majority of Asians. The demographics there are majority Asians. And a lot of those Asians are not even Native Americans. They're not from there. They migrated there to go and work for Google and Facebook and all these other fancy companies there. Hollywood has been built on the back of foreigners. Idris Elba is not American. Hugh Jackman, who plays Wolverine, is not American. Nicole Kidman is not American. People like Lupita Nyong'o is not American. There are so many, some of your favorite, Sean Connery, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Heath Ledger, Russell Crowe. All those people are not Americans. They went there wanting to go and act on the biggest platform for movies in the world. But they were foreigners there. They obviously had work permits. Charlize Theron from South Africa, one of the best actresses in the world, from Benoni, here in Gauteng. Were they stealing Americans' jobs? When Black Coffee goes to perform in Ibiza, in America, in Europe, is he stealing jobs of the DJs that are there? Should he be told, go home, go work at home? I think I stand to be corrected, but Black Coffee has a home, obviously here in Johannesburg, but he has a home in Los Angeles as well. Such a complicated conversation. Illegal foreigners are a problem. Should we legalize the ones that are adding value, that are creating jobs, that can prove that they pay tax, which benefits Black South Africans, that can maybe prove that they are creating jobs for Black South Africans in particular? Because Black South Africans, a big chunk of them don't want to get rid of whites because they're like, at least whites pay tax. At least we've seen the value that whites bring. Whites have built the roads and the schools. But what if someone from Malawi or Mozambique can show the same and say, look, I'm from the Congo, but I've built schools. I've helped to build some of the roads. I've paid hundreds of thousands of rands in tax, which has benefited some of your family members who are on grants. So complicated. And if we only let Operation Tutula, Minister Aaron Motsoaledi, Gayton McKenzie and the Patriotic Alliance, Herman Mashaba, and today with Action SA, if we let them be the only people to drive this conversation, we may not be happy with the outcomes. So each and every one of us need to have some type of a standpoint and an opinion on this very, very pressing topic. Because we become foreigners in other spaces. I've got friends and relatives. The mother of my children is teaching English in China. She's there on a work permit. My kids are studying in China because of that. Should she be chased away and rather Chinese people do that work? She's luckily a legal foreigner. She went there through the gate. But what about other people that are there? What about my kids that are maybe benefiting off the tax regime of the Chinese? Should they be chased out? It's so complicated. My parting shot in this conversation, and I look forward to reading a lot of your comments. As a panelist, I do not care what nationality you are, whether you are in South Africa or anywhere in the world, legally or illegally. What I care about is your value system, your vision, and what benefits you contribute in the area around you. So you could be in South Africa as a Pakistani spaza shop owner, or you could be in South Africa as a Zimbabwean truck driver, illegally. But when I look at you, you are a good person. You do not harm other people. You do not rape and steal and kill. The little bit of money you have, you pass it on, you pay it forward, and you help uplift other people regardless of their nationalities. You try and help create jobs for the people around you, whether they are foreign or not. You donate to the needy. You pass on skills and opportunities and networks and resources to those in need. And you literally contribute value. Versus the idea of a South African citizen with an ID who is legally in South Africa. They are South African, black person, whose family has been here for generations. Yet they rape, they kill, they steal, they destroy. They are bad people. I would rather get rid of that person in my circle than an illegal foreigner who is adding value to my circle and to the people around us. But we need to have this conversation around borders. We need to have this conversation about what's going to happen come end of this year to the 180,000 to 250,000 Zimbabweans who, if they do not get some other type of permit, will have to be forcefully removed and deported back to Zimbabwe, and what that might look like. And then the conversation of how many other foreigners that are African or from anywhere else in the world are here under a special permit or any other permit that doesn't make sense. They're here with a work permit, yet we have South Africans who have the same skills who are not being given jobs. We had an incident with COVID where Cuban doctors were brought into South Africa. Meanwhile, we have doctors in South Africa that are looking for jobs. What does that really mean? It's time for us to lend our voices to social media, to mainstream media, and to lead tangibly on the ground in the spaces that we're in. Pennywell the Black Pen. Have a blessed day, and I look forward to engaging with you on this conversation. Cheers.